Welcome, everyone. I am Enrique Acosta Gonzales, and I am joined by Ashkan Tashvir. And in this episode, we will be speaking about the future of leadership, navigating a rapidly changing world with authenticity. Now, Ashkan leaders often face the challenge of balancing authenticity with the expectations of their role, and no doubt staying true to personal values and beliefs while navigating diverse perspectives, organizational demands, and societal pressures requires courage and self-awareness.
Yeah. Hello, Enrique, and hello, everyone. This is our last episode, as we promised, in two playlists on YouTube, two um, parts. We have managed to come to 50th session. So, congratulations to us, Enrique, and thank you very much for your contribution so far. Yeah, so it was kind of a challenge to pick the last um, topic. And like when I was sitting there, I go, what is the another concern for many leaders out there? And considering that we're living in this era, and the AI, particularly artificial intelligence, and um, things like algorithmic learning, machine learning, data mining, and other more modern technologies are on the rise. And there are lots of ambiguities around them. There's lots of exaggerations about them. And our concern is authenticity, looking into the matters, including AI, particularly in the scope of leadership. I thought that why not? Let's acknowledge that we're living in a changing world, and what would be the future of leadership, considering all these tools are available now. So, how about, like always, we create a context? Yeah. So, I do have background in technology, so I think that I'm positioned um, in a way that, like, yes, most of the time we talk about philosophy, my technical works around theories of sense making, or being framework, um, which is an attempt to map out the meta content or the mental framework behind human performance, or how we lead, how we participate in life, how we engage in projects. But I happen to be a person who's quite keen on technology, and particularly um, software development, and more recently in the last couple of years, I've been quite focused on AI and the implications of that. So I hope that this is going to give me a unique perspective, um, so that we can basically, in that capacity, basically, we're going to talk about the future of leadership um, in that scope. So, context. We are in constant change, anyways. Yeah, we are changing. We talked about it before from a being perspective, or being framework perspective. We are not, you are not just a person. You are a community of people distributed across the time. Because being is not a static concept. You are in a constant state of becoming. So you're not going to be the exact same person after this conversation. Um, we change, and sometimes we transform. Um, and sometimes if we go beyond transformation, we actually transcend. Um, um, so it's it's a phenomenological fact that we change. Yeah, even if you want to look into it from a biological perspective, and through the lens of science, it's quite clear that we change even at a cellular level. For example, we age. Aging means that like lots of things like in our body is changing. So now I know that like I'm emphasizing on this, and it seems to be an apparent fact, but sometimes we forget or we avert our gaze away from this very fact that we are alive and we change constantly. Now, it's not only you change or I change, everyone else is changing and everything else is changing out there. So, and often we fall into this trap of getting stuck in the mundane day to day things in life. So, we're not very present to this very fact that we change. Now, why that matters? Well, particularly when it comes to leadership, it's not like you're just sitting there in a static manner and you're arranging objects um, as if like you're playing chess. Every single entity that you need to be dealing with, for example, the value of the currency that you have some part of your liquid asset of your company in it is changing because of inflation. So the medium of exchange of value is by the nature of it is changing and you're not much in control of that. Yeah, there's so many different factors that are influencing that. For example, the reserve bank's decisions. um so you're not in charge of that. Just pay attention to it. It's like you are a business owner, you're working with lots of different people, coming up with a service, coming up with a product, and um you you want to sell that to some other people called market, and then the exchange that is going to take place, it's going to happen, it's going to be through this means of exchange of value, which is called money or fiat money or currency. So the funny thing here is the people inside your company are changing, the circumstances in their life changes, their state of being is changing. They go through divorce and they're going to be in a kind of mood. They just like their desires change, their motivations change. All of these people that you have partnered with, like many of them, they may get out of the business, they may mm, um, lose their care for the cause that it was leading them to build that business. So they were supplying something to you, and then there's not going to be any more of that. Or war happens, and then some of the things that it was being supplied from certain regional areas of the world, and you're not going to receive it. So lots of things is going to change internally in your organization. The key people, it happens unfortunately sometimes that your key members, your partners, the key people in their company, they go through health issues, severe health issues. They deal with cancer, and then it can be detrimental, and then you lose people. So basically, lots of changes there. At the same time, market changes, the market demands changes because people want different things in different times, depends on so many different factors. What sort of needs may come out, what sort of other alternative solutions is to their pain, it's going to change. And the medium of exchange of value, money, also is going to change. So now, in all these changes, you need to lead. So that by itself is a thing, isn't it? It's like we cannot have this premature, simplistic understanding of leadership that, oh, like we're just arranging these things, this is going to work, or they're not going to work, and we're going to learn. No, there are lots of moving parts as you um, try to play your role. So now, why I started talking about changes on every different ends of our life in the scope of the topic today? Because now, if you add technology in it, then technology by itself is going to change lots of things even more rapidly. New technology comes, and it just changes so many things beyond imagination, beyond our computation. Like we can't fully, as leaders, we can't fully recognize what exact implications or impacts these new changes are going to have. So, or for example, for policymakers, the same. Like policymakers, they cannot really keep up with all of these changes out in the world. Now, so if you talk about technology in general and how it can bring lots of changes into the way that we live and in our organizations and business and the way that we need to lead. Now, at the pinnacle of like the tradition of building technologies or new technologies, we now have things like AI. We now have things like machine learning, algorithmic learning. So this one is not similar to many other tools that we had in the past. When we had a screwdriver, we call it a tool, yeah, and we have even softwares that we use to perform certain tasks, yeah, your accounting software or your photo editing software. These are all tools, but this tool, at the pinnacle of today's technology advancement, it has series of very unique characteristics, and one of which is extremely important, I think, in the in creation of the context for today, um, which is it has the ability to make decisions. It's a very human-like um, um, uh, capability, not only in terms of intellect or in terms of computation power. It's extremely more powerful than us human beings, even combined. It can receive tremendous amount of data, and it can process it, it can compute it, and it can also recognize the patterns way beyond what we human being individually or even collectively are capable of in a fraction of seconds. I think that now that we're talking about this many people, even the people that are not very in love with technology, they have already experienced how AI works, at least by using things like ChatGPT or similar um, tools, which is available to the public. So, but apart from all of that, computation power, it has the ability of decision making, which it just changes the whole game. Now, so in that context, particularly, we want to discuss the future of leadership and bringing the attention of leaders that are listening to us to pay attention to certain things. While we may be freaked out, there's some good news. We can discuss them, and also certain concerns that actually I think, both from a philosophical perspective and practical perspective, as well as technical perspective, we should actually have. So now that the context is created, so, let me ask you, because you're not necessarily, as far as I know, Enrique, you're not very into technology or like the AI. These, what does it land for you, like in the scope of leadership, when we talk about these technological related things? Like, how do you perceive it already?
Yeah, well, I use AI daily. So
Yeah, yeah,
I use it and I've used it to prolong,
mm.
a legacy for even my mother. She wrote 4 songs and
Oh
I
yeah,
was able to produce the lyrics with AI's help and
yeah,
actually get a composed and totally complete song. So I used it for that. I'm using it
yeah,
in preparation for a leadership movie, which I'm kind
yeah,
of like editing. So how leaders embrace the future is very indicative of how well they will lead in the future.
Mm.
Technology is, like you mentioned, always evolving, and it's always some other different tool, right? I happen to
Yeah.
be what they call an early adopter. So
Yeah.
technology comes out and I'm grabbing it.
Yeah.
AI in aspects of leadership, there's a lot of worry about how
Mm.
much this technology will, replace or take
Mm.
over in whatever settings. But I
Yeah.
tend to think always that those fears are based on their knowledge that they're not performing at their peak performance, right? You fear something taking over when you lose your ability to be relevant and your
Yeah.
ability to be the person that, regardless of what technology comes, is
Yeah.
reliable for leadership. And so I love technology, and I'm really looking forward to the
Yeah.
advances that AI will bring to leadership.
Fantastic. Yeah. So let me clarify. Like what I meant was like you're not actively contributing to the production of or expansion of what is called like AI, but a very good consumer of that. I so know that, and that's why I asked that question. I wanted to see as a person who is actually using AI, and you are concerned with the topic of leadership. Like, how does it land for you? Okay, great. So yeah, so there's things about it that you can love, as you mentioned. At the same time, there's certain concerns that it can bring up. So as for the future of leadership, so we've talked about different style of leadership, like moving away from that more extreme hierarchical dominance centric um, leadership, or um, or let's say autocrative leadership, to more like democratic leadership or distributed leadership and transformational leadership, or we can say adaptive leadership with all these changes. That's all there. But then, so one topic that I think it's extremely important to discuss here is AI is a tool. So how does it land for you? What does it land when you say AI is tool?
Well, that's how I use it, right? And
Yeah,
so it's exactly that.
yeah,
For those that see it in other ways, maybe they're not inclined to use it as
yeah,
it is intended to be. But I
yeah.
agree with that statement.
Yes. So it's extremely important to notice that, because we say AI is not is a tool, is not a replacement for leaders or leadership. And that's an extremely important thing. So certain other tasks or occupations can be easily replaced by AI, and let it be, so we can adapt and we can change. And sometimes these changes are hard, but there were a time that like the value of human being was so attached to their labor, but then the forklifts come, the machinery comes, and like gradually we learn to put our attention onto some other dimension of our consciousness, which was our intellect, like computation power and partly creativity. So gradually we moved on in most part, and we outsourced the heavy duty, dangerous actually, jobs that it could depreciate body, mostly to machinery. Um, and fair enough. So and that created the opportunity for us to pay attention to this other dimension to our consciousness. Now a similar thing is happening. It's like um, em- even that a good part of that intellect or computation power, to say, is being outsourced to the AI, and these new technologies. Um, while it may, while some may find it threatening, oh, sometimes like freaking out, or what will happen to my career, or like a job, etc., etc. But the good news is it can bring our attention to some other dimensions to our consciousness. Yeah. For example, spirituality, or focusing on more a creative side to our consciousness, because creativity is one of the things, and we're going to go through a kind of a list of what AI cannot do. Well, wait, so what the things that AI can do is quite clear, like the parts that are quite clear is one, it can process a big amount of data beyond our capabilities. We touched on it. Yeah. Another thing is pattern recognition. It can identify trends and normalities and abnormalities within. It can also help us even do automation even better. It can handle routine tasks more efficiently, way more efficiently than we can. And these are all great. Yeah. At the same time, there are clear limitations to AI, and there are like limitations in general in AI, but then we more specifically talk about it, about the limitations in the scope of leadership. For example, lack of emotional intelligence. Um, AI cannot take certain emotional um, things, particularly around the human suffering, into consideration, or for example, when it comes to cultural sensitivities. Things like absence of creativity, that's another one that I would like to elaborate more on it. Some may say, no, no, it's actually creative. Yeah, you just said that, like, we're working on a song, and yes, it can support you by concatenating different bits and pieces from the patterns that it recognized. But the true, genuine creativity, it's definitely not the job that AI can be really good at, considering that it cannot think outside of the box, out of the box. It requires to go back and tap into the existing data so that it come up with something. It may appear like a creative piece of work, but it's not. It's not genuinely creative work. So that's a very good, a very very important distinction for us to be quite present to, that it doesn't have creativity of that sense. Another one is moral judgment, which is a big one. Um, and any of these things that we say that it doesn't have, people, human being, in particular leaders, they can actually capitalize on more or pay more attention to, knowing that AI is going to take care of certain other things, and it's still like you need to lead it. You need to lead that automation. You need to lead like how the tool is going to be leveraged, etc., etc. But the parts that it cannot do, we talked about like creativity. So therefore, for people out there that they want to change career, it's a good thing to know that while it may feel appear obvious, but you want to work on, you want to develop your creativity. You want to use this not as a threat, but as an opportunity to cultivate your creativity and then go more towards those kind of um, roles, or train yourself in creative thinking. Moral judgment is another one, and that's the one that from a philosophical perspective I'm extremely obsessed with, and I think that from a practical perspective is extremely important for governments, for policymakers, for the judiciary system, and um, for organizations, because yeah, so with AI you can do so many different things, but are those things moral or ethical? Like, is it going to breach someone's privacy? Is it going to cause unnecessary suffering for people? Is it like um, leading to the like humiliation of a group of people or others? Like, there's so much there from an ethical. So basically, the AI is a tool that it needs to be governed more harshly, I would say, than any other tool that we have had in human history, using a decent, practical, ethical framework or ethical frameworks in various different contexts. So that's another thing that as a leader you want to now develop yourself. Like, another one is purpose and intention. See, um, AI cannot create intentions for you. It cannot create purpose, tell us, or meaning. Yeah, so meaning making, that's another thing. It's extremely important to me, and I think it's It is important to many people out there. While it can support you, enable you to make sense of things better, but it cannot take care of the sense making completely, though. It can provide you with more clear statements, and help you with the kind of a rationale so that you can make sense of things, but make sense making, which is the concern for me in my nested theory of sense making in the meta content book. AI can help us to conduct more faster and perhaps sometimes more accurate meta analysis of whatever is basically going on. It can support us see things from multiple different perspectives, etc., etc. But it requires a model that is being provided by a human being, like, for example, what I've provided in the meta content discourse and nested theory of sense making, the layers that the AI can adopt and think through it that way, so that we can then gain benefit out of that, so that the structure is required to be provided by human beings. So basically, it can support us to make sense of things, but not in its totality. Still, you are the one who's making sense of things. But then the sense making, for example, like you're looking into, let me make it tangible, like you're looking into the climate science, or what some people like to call it climate change. So you're looking into that, you're gathering information, you're acquiring knowledge, and you're making sense of it. And then you go, okay, so what? Now the meaning making after sense making is the time that may that that sense that you've made of that topic, the climate science, it may lead you to have this to see this urgency around the moral responsibilities that you may feel you should have, yeah, to do something about it or not. So therefore, like, sense making, meaning making, definitely that these are the things that AI cannot fully do. And that's exactly the opportunity as a leader you want to pick, and you go, I as a leader should be the one, or we as a leader should be the ones who can set intentions, um, set a purpose, create a vision. That's another one for our organization, for the cause that we so care about. So then we can leverage the tools like AI brilliantly. Like, I mean, like, there's no problem with that. It's actually really good. But you're the one who should set the intention, create the purpose, and meaning making. So these are parts of the roles that the AI cannot take care of, but you as a leader, you basically should take care of. So let me pause here. Like, what else you see around that, Enrique?
Well, I like the fact that leaders, even if you don't use the tool, let's say you just say, I don't want to use that, kind of scary, or I don't know where it's going to go,
Mm,
taking privacy, whether you use it or not, as leaders, you definitely have to know where the gap is between AI and your position as a leader,
mm,
and how you can be relevant to fulfill the demands that leadership is calling of you. Because if you don't, not only will you work yourself out of a job, but you won't ever surpass the limitations that you have around technology. And
yeah.
at least for yourself, make sure that you know where you remain relevant and where you
Mm,
bring the positive add to your business or your organization in regards to AI. Now, there's a lot of things that leaders are afraid of, but if you ask me, it's typically
mm,
around the fact that they don't perform at a level where now it's requiring them to
yeah.
perform at, and so
Yeah.
that's some of
Yeah.
the fear that comes about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So towards the end of the conversation we are, and and let's like bring our attention again around to this thing, that there's certain things that the AI cannot do, and in the future of leadership, I mean, the future leaders should take these areas quite seriously. And so we talked about emotional intelligence, like the emotions in general, reading emotions, conveying emotions, which are extremely important beyond our intellect and computation. For example, a leader comforting a team member after personal loss, or recognizing when morale is low and addressing the sensitivities, like in the organizations, and creating that cohesion that is required. Or, for example, like vision and purpose. You want to come up with a vision, you want to reiterate that vision, and you want to win people's heart to come and then join you in something that it's not necessarily evidence based. You need to have people believe in your vision before they see it, not that they see it and then they join the party. So these are extremely important. These are not necessarily purely scientific. It's not measurable, but they're extremely important in reality of leading an organization, leading a team, etc., etc. So, moral and ethical judgment, we talked about it. Like, for example, deciding whether to prioritize profit or employees' well-being during financial crisis within your organization. That's a very, very common thing. Like, to what extent you really want to push, like, are you only caring about short-term gain and like being effective in a sense that you complete that project, or you're more caring about sustained effectiveness? It's like beyond that project, the team should still want to work with each other. And yeah, so that's also the we talked about creativity and innovation, which is a big thing in the world of business, like and things like brainstorming unique marketing strategy to break into new market. That's a good example. Took a note here. It happens a lot. Like this is not just a theoretical thing. Like through Ingenesis Ventures, like our consultants work with different organizations, and that's coming up with new revenue stream, and adapting to the changing market is extremely important thing, and you cannot outsource that to the AI alone. You can always leverage, like for all of these things, you can leverage AI as a tool, but not you cannot fully outsource them to the thing. So these are the the opportunities for leaders, particularly to pay more attention to. Another one is building relationships, and for example, a leader building rapport with a diverse team through shared experiences and authentic communication. Building relationships, building partnerships are extremely important. Like effective leaders are the ones that always they tap into other people's knowledge and other people's resources with full vulnerability. If you look into the top achievers, the high achievers in the world of business, particularly, like they are the ones that they can effectively they can create this synergy in. So that's another thing, that building relationship is not something that the AI is going to do it for you. You can't outsource that. You need to build genuine relationships. It's a human related thing. It has emotions involved. It has vulnerability involved. It has like openness and transparency involved. And that's not something you can fully outsource to. So if you look into the official definition of the word entrepreneur, for example, by John Baptiste Say, the French economist who actually coined the term, he says entrepreneur is the one who shifts economic resources from the areas of low productivity and yield to the areas of higher productivity and return. So, in order for you to actually arrange these economical resources, including people's work, not people, but people's work, you definitely require a high level of emotional intelligence. You need to be able to have a healthy relationship with various different aspects of being, as I call them in the being framework, like authenticity, courage, um, assertiveness, proactivity, resourcefulness, commitment, integrity in general, and authenticity, and so on. So you need to have a healthy relationship with moods like fear and anxiety and care and vulnerability. So these are the things that um, AI is not going to look into introspection and go through these kind of dialogues, so that then you deeply can be on top of these qualities that it's required. So again, while AI tools can be helpful in supporting us, you can't fully outsource all of these things. Developing leadership, for example, you can't do that. And one is or contextual decision making. While AI, and I've played with it a lot, not only with Chat GDPs or tools like that, but also the AI machines. We actually train ourselves for our own purposes in our organizations. Um, so AI struggle to adapt decisions to nuanced, unpredictable situations or patterns. While it can be helpful, like bringing attention to certain blind spots and can make suggestions, it's extremely hard for an AI to really get nuances, human-related nuances when it comes to unpredictable situations. For example, a leader responding to a sudden crisis, such as, let's say, PR disaster, with tact and adaptability. So these are the things that can. Cultural sensitivity. That's another one that we touched on. Leading a global team with sensitivity to diverse traditions and practices. It can again like bring suggestions to you, but at the end of the day, it requires a human consciousness beyond intellect, beyond just pure rationality, to actually be sensitive to some of these things. Because some of these things that we will be dealing with are not irrational or rational, are irrational. They just don't comfortably sit in something that through logic you can learn them. And there's so many of these things, like for example the digestive system in our body, or for example the way that the weather works. There's so many important things in our life that they don't follow a kind of a pattern, predictable pattern. Or for example, like you attempting to build a friendship with someone, calling a person a friend, or for example the process that it takes to trust someone, or your romantic intimate partner, that you want to have. So there's so many things that sit there. Another one in the scope of leadership particularly is inspiring and motivating a team. And that's a major role as a leader that you want to play. You want to inspire your team, you want to motivate your team towards the goal, despite discomforts, hardships, difficulties, adversities, and sometimes traumatic catastrophes. So you want to be the one who can and there are others that like we're going beyond our time. The other things also that the AI cannot do. So I hope that um, our audience gain benefit from this conversation. Um, I basically went through all the things I want to say. Any final things, Enrique? Please, like, if something comes up for you that you want to bring into this context, add.
Yeah, in regards to AI or any technology or any tool, if you are a leader and you experiencing fear, it's important to settle down and really dig into why it is that you are experiencing fear over such a thing. And
Mm,
get to the nitty-gritty of what it is that you are thinking about, so that you can handle that, because the
mm,
tools are going to be here whether we
yes.
fear them or not. They're coming, right? So it's
Mm,
just like change. So it's important for leaders to really realize why it is the opposition or the angst around this new technology. And then also to be aware that you have to be at the leading edge of it, in
mm,
order for you to be able to harness all of it, that it can offer, and still lead in a human setting.
yes, yes. So thank you very much, Enrique. This is the last episode of this series. I really want to acknowledge you. Appreciate all your efforts, letting me do the most of the talking. And I hope that our audience enjoyed and benefited from this. At the end, I would like to encourage everyone to Like if you've gone through most of the episodes of this series, you should know and be slightly familiar with my meta content discourse, the meta content book, and the nested theory of sense making. And I would hope that it didn't encourage you to have a look in the book and benefit from that in your leadership endeavors, as well as like the being book and the human being book, the being framework that basically is an attempt to map out the meta content, the mental framework for human performance, particularly in the scope of leadership. Um, I say goodbye and thank you again for being with us. Thank you, Enrique. Thank you, everyone. And bye.